Good evening, everyone, and depending on where you're at, if you're watching this live, Happy New Year. It is, well, for us here in central Illinois, it is New Year's Eve, and in a few hours it'll be 2025. Depending on when and where you're watching this, happy 2025. If not, if you're joining us live, I'm sure you're excited to spend a little bit of time this evening with Athearn and some new products that we're going to be talking about. Let's see who has braved the New Year's parties and have joined us live. I see Wrathbaster is here, Trainjack 16, DG Model Works is in the house. Hopefully he's partying on his layout and getting some work done on it. Randall is here. Mr. Sid is here. Dirty Dan 490 is here. Let's see, we've got Chessie, Zap, The Rock 1973, Todd Armstrong, and Charles Woods is here as well. So thank you for joining us on a New Year's Eve. And we're going to be talking HO scale. N scale, guys, I've got some stuff for you as well. We're going to be talking big boys. We're going to be talking some freight cars. We get a little bit of everything because as of this past Friday, the January pre-orders went live on the Athearn website. So, like always, if you're catching this after and you're seeing this on the YouTube channel and you like the content that you see that comes here on a weekly basis, please do the Athearn team a favor. Like and subscribe. Click the notification bell. That way you're notified every time a new video like this drops into the feed. And comment. I try to respond to as many comments as possible. And as always, if you have suggestions for road names or models, please submit those to the following email address. That is athearn-productsuggestions@athearn.com. Again, that's athearn-productsuggestions@athearn.com. One more round of shout outs and let's dive deep into big boys tonight. I see Mark is here. Jonathan is here. Just Into Trains is here. Eric, Richie, Randall, and Wardell. Many have joined us. We've got about 50, which is pretty much more than I expected for a holiday. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get started with some model train goodness. And we're going to be starting tonight talking about big boys, and we're going to start with the HO scale and then we'll talk about N scale. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. Now, the big boy has a long storied history, and if you don't know much about it, allow me to give you a quick cliff notes of the Union Pacific big boy. Now, Union Pacific wanted something that could make the same speeds as the Challengers, the 4664s before it, but could carry the entire 4,290-ton train over the Wasatch Mountains without a helper. Now, the easiest solution was to scale up the successful Challenger design by adding another pair of drivers to each half of the locomotive, thus transforming the 4664 into the 4884. In 1941, Union Pacific placed an order for 20 4884s, numbered 4,000 through 4019, with the American Locomotive Works. Now, according to legend, an unidentified machinist at the Elko plant is responsible for the name Big Boy, having scrawled the name in chalk on a partially completed locomotive. Now, the big boys were exactly what the railroad wanted. They were coal burners, and they had 68-inch drivers, 135,375 pounds of tractive effort, and 6,000 horsepower. They started service on the line from Ogden to Green River, Wyoming, and their operating range soon increased to cover the line all the way to Cheyenne. Now, traffic surged in World War II, resulting in 5 more big boys, numbered 4020 through 4024, being built in 1944. These versions were slightly heavier than the original order due to the wartime material restrictions. Now, despite the influx of diesel locomotives following World War II, the big boys and the Challengers both remained the prime power of the overland route. They also saw service as helpers, leading gas turbines and diesels over the famous Sherman Hill. Now, they remained active through the 1950s, and some were not retired until the very early 1960s. By then, the first 20 units had been run well over 1 million miles, a true testament to the ingenuity and design of these locomotives. And of course, now we are fortunate enough to have 4014, which has been restored to running condition and has toured most of the United States for quite a while. So that's pretty cool. Now, one of the things I do want to let you know is if you remember, we of course did the 4014 as it appeared through its Heartland of America trip just this past fall. I want to stress the big boys that we're going to be talking about tonight are not like those. That big boy is featuring all new tooling, which will basically bring it up to date to the present day 4014. The big boys we're going to be talking about tonight are based on how they appeared back in the 1940s. Now, the locomotive that you see on your screen currently, this is from the previous run. This is 4014 as it appeared back in the day. This is ATHG 97205. It's from a previous run. It's from a few years ago, maybe kind of hard to find. It's probably on the secondary market by now. However, you could probably also find it at a train show, or you might be lucky enough to find it on one of the many online auction sites. So without further ado, let's talk about what we're going to be offering for the month of January. Pre-orders will close on Friday the 24th. So again, we're pretty much going back to the original era of the big boy, and we're going to start with Union Pacific. Now, as we mentioned earlier, the 4884 locomotives were owned exclusively by Union Pacific. Now, rumored Union Pacific was going to call these the Wasatch class. They acquired the name Big Boy because of the story I told you earlier. An unknown machinist scribbling the name with chalk onto a not then completed locomotive. Now, the first one that we have for you is 4000. That's the very top of your screen. This is a 1941 era as delivered, which means it's a coal burner. And if you notice up front, you'll see the cooling pipes. Coming up next is a prime for grime version. This is 4003. This is a mid 1940s era. And again, prime for grime, so the black is going to be pretty much faded out. Now, one thing I do want to mention about prime for grime locomotives, we give you the starting point. They don't necessarily mean that they're prime for grime and dirty right out of the box. We're muting the colors for you. We're fading the colors. We're experimenting more with a flat paint versus a semi-gloss as delivered paint. We're giving you the starting point to weather the locomotive or freight car to your liking. So keep in mind that's what prime for grime is. It doesn't mean instantly weathered from the factory. It's just some of the colors have been muted. Now this one is going to have coal burners and it's also going to have cooling pipes. Right underneath 4003 is 4019. This is a 1945 era. You'll notice this one has smoke lifters. This is still a coal burner and it does have cooling pipes. And then we have 4020. This is a 1941 era as delivered with coal burners and cooling pipes. So those four locomotives right there, if you're modeling the 1940s, you've pretty much got your original OG big boys. Now, one that we stuck into the mix is a legendary liveries version. This is 4024. This legendary liveries has got the Greyhound scheme with the yellow trim. It's also going to have smoke lifters, oil burner, and no cooling pipes. Now, even though this is Union Pacific, this never existed. This was legendary liveries. However, our product developers thought, you know what would happen if the Union Pacific had gone with the Greyhound scheme on a big boy? I think it looks rather attractive. I think it's also rather plausible, even though it never happened. So for folks that do like the legendary liveries, we've got another option for you. Now, speaking of legendary liveries, we went a little bit further. Product development has given us some more options. So if you ever wondered what a non-Union Pacific big boy would look like, well, here you go. We're going to start with the Santa Fe. We're also going to start with some fictional history. So keep in mind, everything that I'm telling you right now is fictional. It's pure fantasy, but it sounds pretty cool. So Santa Fe, with their stable performance at speed and ability to handle large trains, they found that the 4884 concept to be somewhat appealing. They took delivery of their 6000 class in 1944 to help handle wartime traffic. Now, Santa Fe had experimented with compound articulated locomotives in the 1910s, but they were never entirely successful. So buying the Union Pacific's design off the shelf from Elko seemed like a logical choice. This is Santa Fe number 6000. Again, Santa Fe never had big boys. Big boys were just Union Pacific. However, in an alternate universe, this is what they could have appeared like. Now, the Santa Fe features are a little bit different from the Union Pacific because we're trying to keep it plausible within the Santa Fe universe, if you will. This is going to be an oil burner, not a coal burner. This is going to have cooling pipes, and the firebox and smoke box sides are black versus the gunmetal that we're accustomed to. Next, Southern Railway. No, we did not forget you. And wouldn't this have been something to see a locomotive this size in that beautiful Southern green? Now, Southern was also hoping to alleviate wartime traffic constraints when they went to Alco for 4884 locos in 1944. Pleased with the 2882 Chesapeake class, the big boy wheel arrangement was a natural progression and would prove itself on the steep grades throughout the Southeast. Again, Southern never had these, but we wanted to offer these for you because we know there's plenty of people that love legendary liveries. And for all the haters out there, don't forget there was a time when Athearn actually did a big boy in John Deere green and yellow. Now, these Southern features will have a coal burner, and this has no cooling pipes. And then last but not least, and pretty plausible if you think about it, we've got MDM. Now, south of the border, Mexico's state-owned railroad from 1938 to 1998 was somewhat famous for acquiring secondhand locos from the U.S. and operating them long after they've been retired beyond the border. So it's plausible to say in 1962 they were able to pick up several big boy locos from the UP and putting them through their shops, and after a conversion to oil, the Elko giants gave many more years of good service to the road. So up for your review is MDM 4000. Now this, like the text says, is an oil burner and there are no cooling pipes. So there you have it. We've got 4 legendary liveries as well as 4 based on fact prototype locomotives. So we've got a 50-50 offering for you guys. I know the legendary liveries can be trigger warnings for some, but quite honestly, we always seem to get more pre-orders on some of the legendary liveries than we do the actual prototypes. We'll see what happens this time. Now let's talk about the features of the HO scale big boy. So these are just a small review of all of the details that go into the HO scale big boy. For complete details, please go to the Athearn website and select the new announcements tab, and then select the PDF for the HO scale big boy. They're all going to feature illuminated number boards and headlights. Of course, the headlight will turn off in reverse, illuminated directional backup light and tender, correctly operating eccentric cranks, adjustable top cab vent and cab windows. Minimum radius on these is 22 inches. This is a pretty big locomotive, so you're going to want at a minimum 22 inches. Now, of course, we're offering these with and without decoder and sound. You can get them with the Tsunami 2 equipped decoder, as well as decoder ready with a 21-pin NEM connector. So there you have it. There is the HO scale version of the big boy. Now we also are offering these in N scale. Now you can probably see my 4014 from the last release decided to join. This is the N scale version. We're going to be doing the N scale version once again. Now the one that you see on your screen currently is from a couple of previous runs ago. This is ATH 22902. Now new versions are now part of the Genesis class. When this guy first came out, it still was a just an Athearn N scale. Now they've been upgraded to Genesis. There's a few more features that we've packed into them. Let's talk about what we're going to be offering for you N scale guys as well. So you N scale guys, if you weren't paying attention, now's the time to pay attention. I'm going to go through these briefly because you're basically getting offered the same road numbers and legendary liveries as the HO scale guys. So first up at the top of your screen, you're going to see the Union Pacific 4000. Again, this is as it appeared in 1941, fresh from the factory. It's delivered with its coal burning and cooling pipes. Next, just because you're N scale doesn't mean you don't get prime for grime. We are going to offer 4003, the mid 1940s era big boy, in prime for grime. This will have coal burners and cooling pipes. Underneath that, we've got 4019. This is a 1945 era. You'll notice this one has the smoke lifters. It too is a coal burner and it has cooling pipes. Then we've got number 4020. This is a 1941 era as delivered with coal burners and cooling pipes. And then last, and I have a feeling you N scale guys are really going to want to grab this one. I just foresee seeing a lot of these on N-track layouts in the coming years at shows. This is the 4024. This is a legendary liveries, but again, it is quite plausible. It could have happened. This is a legendary liveries Greyhound scheme with the yellow trim. Smoke lifters, this one's an oil burner, and there's no cooling pipes. I mean, you got to admit, even though it never happened, the Greyhound scheme really fits this locomotive quite nicely. Now, just like the HO scale guys, you get some other legendary liveries as well. You get the Santa Fe that we talked about, Santa Fe number 6000. Now, this one will have details such as an oil burner. This has cooling pipes, and just like the HO scale version, the firebox and the smoke box sides are black. We're also going to offer that really cool Southern Railway version in the Southern green. Something about that color just looks really good on any locomotive, and the big boy is absolutely no exception. Southern number 4075. No, it never existed, but if you're modeling an HO and N scale, it can exist on your layout or your module. This is going to be a coal burner, and it has no cooling pipes at all. And then finally, just like HO, we're going to offer you the NDM locomotive number 4000. Again, this is an oil burner, and there's no cooling pipes on this one. So there you go. You've got your choice. If you're a prototype guy, maybe you're a prototype guy like myself, then you're probably going to go with the UP versions. If you're more into, you know what, I'm not really a UP guy, and I kind of like the looks of that Southern green, well, we've got some legendary liveries for you as well. Now, keen-eyed observers will know that my layout behind me is based on the northern line of the Boston to Maine. I am going to throw some trivia out for you. We have a big boy on the northern of the Boston to Maine. True or false? Did a big boy ever traverse the northern on the Boston to Maine? Let me know in the comments. I'll see who gets it right first, and then I'll let you know. Let's talk about the features, though, of the N scale big boy. And we're going to go back to our picture of the model. Again, just some of the features. You can get the full features on our website at athearn.com under the new announcements tab. Boiler backhead with full details and printed gauges, individually applied piping, valves, generators, and more, operating eccentric cranks on both sides, operating in the correct direction. Headlights with directional light change, see-through running boards, see-through cab windows, and very important for us N-scale guys, 5-pole skew wound motor, has a precision machined flywheels with multi-link drivetrain. This guy behind me has run quite a few hours on many N-track setups in the past few years. It's been flawless. Minimum radius on this is 11 inches. So T-track, if you really want to run one of these on T-track, it's going to have to be on that outer run. I've run mine on N-track and had zero issues with it. Obviously, on a switching layout like this, curves are not really a big deal. But if you've got a home layout or maybe a smaller club layout, you're going to want a minimum radius of 11 inches on this big guy. So there you have it. There is the big boys in both HO and N. I'm going to take a moment and see if anybody's got any questions, and let's see if anybody. Jason, I almost feel like it's cheating to say you got it first, but I'm going to go back here. So again, for those that missed it, keen-eye observers will know that my layout is based on the Boston to Maine northern line. Did a big boy ever traverse the northern of the Boston to Maine? So I'm looking back and I'm trying to see. It looks like Canadian Locomotive Logistics says no. There's our first one. Dirty Dan says no, it did not. Sid says it's Steamtown. You kind of got that right. A lot of people, Jason saying no. But then Jason says, sure did. 4012. He is absolutely right. Jim, you got it as well. Yes, the big boy 4012 was not under its own power. It was being pulled. It did traverse the northern on its way to Steamtown. At one time, Steamtown was in Bellows Falls, and before it went to Pennsylvania. So yes, the answer is a big boy did once traverse the northern line of the Boston and Maine. I believe that was in the early to mid 70s, but don't quote me on it. So there's your trivia for going into the new year. Thanks for all that participated in that little bit of trivia. Now let's see if there's any questions on either the HO or the N-Scale Big Boys. If you've got your questions for these, put them in the comment section and I will try to grab them and answer them for you. Let's see what we've got. I climbed on that loco as a little kid at Steamtown in Bellows Falls, Vermont. Look at that. I didn't get to climb it. I did get to see it. So that's a cool story. So Dirty Dan wants to know the lighting functions on the HO scale big boys. So on the HO scale ones, you're going to have lit number boards as well as the headlights. And you're also going to have the light in the tender, which operates when the locomotive is in reverse. There are some more details beyond lighting features if you go to athearn.com and select the new announcements tab, and then you can see all of the many details our product development team has put into these models. Let's see. I'm going to go back a little bit, see if anybody had any questions on the big boy. Let's see. No, not really. Also, I want to thank you for hanging out to me a little bit earlier. Normally we do Train Tuesday at 7, and we did it 6 today because of New Year's, but I did want to do it live this week. Jason, with some more information on 4012, he said somehow 4012 squeezed through the Bellows Fall Tunnel on its way to Pennsylvania. Yeah, that's interesting. How many? Jason probably knows. There's been at least 2 times that I know of in that tunnel's lifetime they've had to lower the trackage because of the size of freight cars changed from when they originally built that tunnel. It's pretty interesting. If you want to know more about it, you can do a quick search online on the Bellows Fall Tunnel. It's pretty interesting. If you ever get to Railfan there, it's pretty cool. Let's see. Ian wants to know, did it get moved in Steamtown or is it cut up and sold? As far as I know, it's still at Steamtown. I don't know. I haven't really followed it. According to the tunnel progress, 3 times so far. I know once before or during World War II because freight cars are getting bigger. I know of one time because of Amtrak and their passenger cars. So let's see. Robin Lila, this is about the big boy question. Do you ever think they will install a speaker in the front? I can tell you with the releases in both HO and N scale for this release, no, they're going to be in the tender. Will the technology allow us to do that in the future? Absolutely, in the future it will. But that would create, there'd be quite a bit of work to do to that. Is it possible? Yes. Is it like that right now? No. Right now they're in the tender. But who knows in the future, the way speaker technology is going, it could probably be done. Dirty Dan says, it's still at Steamtown, in case you're wondering if you want to see 4012. It's still at Steamtown at the front entrance. So you can go ahead and take a look at that. Okay, with that, let's go on to the next thing, and we're going to be talking freight cars. We're going to be going Genesis HO scale, 50 foot, 50-foot smooth side box cars by PC&F. Now these are going to have the 14-foot plug door. Now you've probably heard me say this before, but it bears repeating just for those of us that are purchasing these for our layouts and we want to know what they are used for. Back in the 1960s, insulated boxcars became more common on most railroads. This type of car was useful for hauling canned goods or other commodities that needed to be protected from temperature extremes. Now, the model that you see here that's depicted by Athearn Genesis was built by Pacific Car and Foundry and features different side panel construction and door types per prototype. Now, the cars also feature a detailed cushion underframe and full brake rigging. Now, we've offered this particular car with different door arrangements as well as door sizes. And this is all based on the Pacific Foundry cars. Now, the one that you see on your screen right now is from a previous release. This is ATHG 26839. It's Golden West service. The car number is 136205. And again, it's from a previous release. You can probably still find them in some hobby shops if you really like this car. This is ATHG 26839. Again, item number is ATHG 26839. If you missed out on this, stick around. We've got some good news for you. So that being said, let's talk about what we're going to be offering for the month of January for pre-order. And we're going to start with Union Pacific. Now, these are for more of the modern modeler 2000s era, and they can go certainly up from there, but they start out their journey in 2000s. These are former Cotton Belt and Southern Pacific cars. The first one that you see on the top of your screen, still with reporting marks SSW for Cotton Belt, is car number 23562. We're also going to offer two SP versions, 850021 and 850039. Again, Union Pacific with reporting marks for Cotton Belt and Southern Pacific as they appeared in the 2000s. Speaking of Southern Pacific, we're going to give you some options. 1970s modelers, please note at the top of your screen, you will see a 1970s Southern Pacific car. This is car number 694672. Additionally, we're going to offer two other cars that are not shown here, but you can see them on our website at athearn.com. We're going to offer car number 694710 as well as 694800. Guys that are modeling the 2000s, particularly you guys that love Prime for Grime, we're going to offer two versions for you. These are 2000s era. We've got SP 694661 and 694796. We're also going to offer some Cotton Belt for you guys. Again, we're going to start in the 1970s. We're going to have three road numbers for 1970s Cotton Belt. The one pictured here is 23575, and not pictured here is 23649. 23705 is the third one in that set. And then for 2000s modelers, we've got two Prime for Grime versions. We've got Cotton Belt number 23565 and 23651. And then finally, we're going to offer the Golden West service once again. Again, we've got some cool options, and pay attention to the Prime for Grime versions. These are really cool. Now, these are for you 1990s era modelers. We're offering three road numbers of the Golden West service. The one that you see on your screen currently is 768102. Of course, our reporting marks for Golden West service is GVSR. Keep that in mind because the two Prime for Grime versions that we have been patched. The first one is for Cotton Belt. SSW 23721 is a Prime for Grime example as the car appeared in roughly 2014. And then finally, we've got an SP version as well. This one has been Prime for Grime, patched out for Southern Pacific, and its number is 694822. And this is representative of a car from 2006. So you've got a lot of options this month for these cars. Again, these are for perishables. So if you have any type of industry on your layout that is something to do with the food industry or something perishable, these are perfect cars for your layout. And again, we've got cars from the 70s all the way into the 90s as well as the 2000s. So we've got something for everyone. Now let's talk about the model features. And again, these are just the high points. You can go to athearn.com and select the new announcements tab to see all the details. These are Athearn Genesis, so they're going to have a separate grab iron details. They will also have etched metal coupler platforms. And like all Genesis cars, they have full underframe detail. What that means is they have air brake reservoirs, control valve, brake cylinder, and the plumbing and brake rod details as well. Of course, the trucks will have animated rotating bearing caps, and they will include coupler lift bars, train line hoses, brake hoses, and associated hardware. Now, the minimum radius on these cars is 18 inches. However, since they are Genesis, they just look better on a minimum radius of 22. We recommend a 22. If you really want to put them on an 18, you can. They will negotiate it, but they look kind of odd. So keep that in mind as you're shopping for these cars. So there you have it. Everything that I've talked about tonight, you have until Friday, January 24th, 2025. I know that's next year, right? Well, next year is only a few hours away, depending on when you're watching this, or it's already 2025. So you have a couple of Fridays to go to place your pre-orders on anything that we talked about here tonight. And with that, let's see what kind of questions you have for us before we go into the new year. Let's see what we've got going back a little bit here. Charles wants to know, Jim, will you ever produce the CSX General Electric locomotives of AC 6000 CW locomotives in N scale? I never say never. Um, in the last 2 years, we've developed a lot of new tooling in N scale. CA11s, acid tank cars, and NSC 4000, 6400s, 6000 cars. In fact, we're going to be seeing here, I believe in February, we're going to start seeing the new Athearn N scale 45-foot trailers. That's new tooling. So anything is possible. Now, sometimes the product developers at Athearn, they don't tell me stuff because they know I'm just going to tell you. So who knows what they're working on? I can tell you this much. All of our Athearn product developers are secretly locked behind locked doors and generally don't see the light of day. They're working that hard on products. Once in a while, though, they sneak out and put a picture out there on social media. Let's see what other questions you may have. Let's see what else we've got. Update on Surfliner cars. I don't have any solid information to pass along now, but I'm hoping as we go into 2025, we'll start to get some information. I can tell you this much, and I know it sounds hard because you don't see the big picture, but they are working on them. Product development has been hard at work on those, and they are trying to make them as perfect as possible for us and as user friendly for the modelers as possible. We don't want to disappoint you. It's a big deal. It's a big model. We've invested a lot of time and energy on these models. And when we have some stuff to show you, we will definitely show you. Let's see. Thank you for the compliment, Dave, on the tank cars. I would agree, especially the N-scale LPG cars. I love those. They are so detailed. David wants to know any other plans for Steam other than Big Boy or 844. We are looking into some things. Now, remember, we just delivered I believe it was the 280s. We showed those off at Train Fest, and we just delivered them soon after that. That's kind of new tooling too. It's been updated. Did a lot of work on those, and I have to admit, I actually grabbed a Southern one. They're just really cool. I figure, my HL layout might have a touristy railroad, and that was my justification. They run absolutely beautiful, and we also know that folks like you are wanting alternatives from either really big locomotives or old timey locomotives. They're looking for more like Pacifics and things of that nature. We're looking into it. Right now, we've got a lot on our plate with all the different things in product development, as well as some of the things that we want to update in 2025. But we are looking into it. So keep an eye on our social media. That'll be the first place we announce something like that. Oh, let's see, Derek. I think I answered this question last time, and probably wasn't you, Derek, so don't feel like I'm calling you out. But we need to bring back Coke and John Deere. Yeah, you remember earlier in the show I said something about, for all the haters out there, the legendary liveries. We actually did a John Deere Big Boy one time. It's actually a collectible item now. Licensing back then was a little bit easier than it is now. Licensing is a big part of everything that we do. There are many times, whether it be a railroad like Amtrak, or a carrier like UPS, there's licensing involved. And sometimes licensing can exceed the price of what we comfortably want to pass on to you as a consumer. What that basically means is it's going to cost a lot of money for us to do models with those manufacturers on there. Now, that's not a no. That just means that some things are harder to get licensing for than others. And John Deere and Coca-Cola are certainly one of the top tier brands it's really hard to get some licensing for. Who knows? I know currently we're working with our Mac licensing, and that seems to be going in a positive direction. We'll see what 2025 brings us. Sid wants to know progress on the NSC 6400s or 6000s. Those two are being worked on. I know John has been hard at work on those and refining some things. I'm hoping we might have some surprises for you if you make it to the Amherst show, which is just a few weeks away, really. I know John is going to be at the show, and he's also going to be bringing some samples. So if you're going to the Amherst show in Springfield, Massachusetts, you're going to want to stop by the Better Living Center. We are booth number 32A, and stop by. I know John's pretty excited about some stuff he's bringing, so you're not going to want to miss that. And for those that can't make it, we're going to try to post that on social media as well. Jason, you have been patient and you've typed this out twice, or you just copied and pasted. I don't know. I'm going to put it up here just because he's done it twice. Fun fact, the Big Boy was shown on the Robert Montgomery Lucky Strike Theater back in 1954, starring Ed Begley as a UP engineer. There's a DVD video on it. I didn't know if you missed it. Okay, so yeah, we got you. Robert Montgomery, I believe the lead actor in Father Knows Best. Pretty cool. Surfliner update, Stephanie, pretty much the same with the California cars. We are working on those. We hope to have some updates for you in 2025. No updates on SD70s yet. I know Richie's been pretty patient on social media, been asking us about that. I don't have any updates for you yet. As soon as we get some updates, I try to post those on social media. Jonathan wants to know any chance we can get some Go Transit GP40-2Ws and Go Transit FP7 units down the pipeline. Possibility. Your best bet is to shoot us an email at athearn-product-suggestions@athearn.com. You can also go to our website and use the contact us form to fill that out. 2025, I'm pretty excited about. We've got some neat projects that are coming out, and a lot of them have been requested by you, so all of our fans. Gabe wants to know any updates on the Portland and Western 39-2s. I believe and I'm going by memory here. I believe we're going to see those in the spring of 2025. So we're roughly about 3 months out. Everything goes to plan. Keep in mind when I do give you those ETAs, especially when they're far out, those ETAs are subject to change because we're still subject to shipping delays, things of that nature. There's been many times where I've said that something's going to come in on this date and it gets hung up in Long Beach on the rails, or it gets hung up in Chicago at the truck depot. Some of those things are unforeseen. So keep in mind that ETA stands for exactly what it is. It's an estimated time of arrival. But I know you're probably, nobody's as impatient as I am. I'm still waiting for my GP15s. And if you are too, the GP15s, we're really hoping to get those in late February, mid March, somewhere in there. Train Jack, I don't have any updates on GP60s for you at this time. I want to say those are going to be later in 2025. Usually each live we get this request at least once. Athearn 2.0 CSX SD70 Mac with flared radiator and Alaska Railroad and HO scale. We get a lot of people asking that. This is probably a good time to say, if you've used the Athearn product suggestion email and you haven't gotten a response and you just keep hitting the send button, we're getting your emails, but we don't always reply to those. We're just using that as a way for us to store up data so that when we do work on something, we've got that access to those requests. Don't think we're ignoring you. Jesse wants to know any East Coast articulated steam in the future, such as an Allegheny or EM1. I don't know what the guys in product development are working on. I don't know. If they were, they didn't tell me. So you're just going to have to keep an eye on our social media. Will the Genesis 282s ever be retooled? So a couple of years ago, right after we started the rebrand, we made a commitment to go through a lot of our Genesis tooling and update it. That's why you're seeing Jeep units getting lit number boards, classification lights. We've started to update all of those. It's our goal to go through all of the Genesis locomotives and update those with new tooling as time allows. So it's just a matter of time. So yes, the short answer is that yes, they're going to get worked on at some point. When, I don't know. We've got Ray in the studio tonight, and he wants to know, do Boston and Maine related requests get a bit more weight behind them? The answer to that is surprisingly no, they don't. Now, one thing that I think is kind of cool is Athearn has employees from all over the country. We have folks like myself that are from the East Coast. One of our product developers, Robert, he's also from the East Coast. Sometimes Robert can sneak stuff in for me. So if you see Maine Central or anything from the East Coast, you can usually thank Robert for that. We've also got some guys like Janik that are from the West Coast, and you're going to see some really cool stuff. Insider secret, if it's Kodachrome, Janik probably had something to do with it. But you know what? I love Kodachrome. Who doesn't? Janik's also got some other really cool short lines that he's done a lot of research on. So sometimes he'll bring those to the table. And then, of course, we have our lead developer, John, who is currently on the West Coast, but he's originally from Wisconsin. So fortunately, with John being from the Midwest, we see a lot of Milwaukee Road. We see a lot of Rock Island. We see a lot of Illinois Central Gulf. So we have a really good rounded out team, and we try to choose models based on what kind of requests we get. Now, in the past, Athearn's been kind of blamed of being a West Coast centric company. That has changed in the last 2 years, mainly because we've got more guys on board now, and we've got guys from all over the country. And second of all, we opened up the Athearn product suggestion line. Now, what we did learn through that line, especially through our surveys, is Northeast and Midwest are actually more popular than some of the West Coast stuff. So we are now offering more East Coast, Southeast, and Midwest roads than we have in the past. So yeah, I don't really, Ray, to answer your question, no, I don't really have a lot of pull there. That is all mainly on product development. Let's see what other questions we've got. Randall, this is a great question. And it kind of hit me in the right here. General Electric U36C. Any thoughts about those? Kind of like the second generation General Electrics. Yeah, they're kind of cool. I can tell you that in meetings, product development has talked about it, but that's all I can tell you at this point. Again, product development is always working. In some cases, it seems like round the clock on products. So you'll have to stay tuned, see what we do. Let's see what else we've got here. I'm also seeing some suggestions. Randall, I think I saw one from you. Train Jack. Requests like that, shoot us an email. Shoot us an email at Athearn Product Suggestions. All right. Well, any questions on Athearn other than new products that you'd like to see? There's Randall, and then we've got chassis system sells fast. Need more. Yeah, chassis does have a pretty good following. So, real quick, I want to ask you, since we are on New Year's Eve at the time of this live, what kind of model railroading resolutions do you have? Doesn't necessarily have to be just about Athearn. We're talking about model railroading. You want to do something new to your layout? Is there something new that you want to learn as far as model railroading? Is there something that you'd like to see Athearn do in 2025? Let us know briefly what your model railroad new resolutions are. For myself, to finally get scenery on this layout behind me, I've spent a ton of time on the shadow box aspect of it. And unbeknownst to you, there's also an HO layout in the other room I'm working on. I'd like to get that done by summer. We'll see what happens. Let's see. Ray is sharing, I think, what a lot of folks are thinking right now. I'd like to find my layout. It's in the basement somewhere. Let's see. Jonathan says, hey, Jim, here's a joke for you. What's the story about the Enterprise F? I don't know. There's no letters after 1701 in my universe. I am strictly in the original series. Let's see. A lot of people's wanting to do some work on their layout. My resolution is for Athearn to finally release the California cars. Okay, get in here and help us out. No, I'm just kidding. I'm hoping we're going to see something in 2025. So keep your eyes peeled. A couple of guys asking are saying they're going to rebuild their layouts. That's always a good thing. Get some track laid and run some trains. That's the best part. Anthony, go ahead and shoot us an email. I can't promise you anything, but you can definitely shoot us an email. I would send you an Athearn hat, but we don't have Athearn hats. I don't have those. More 45-foot trailers. Yes. Both HO and N scale. That is not a problem with Athearn. We've got some coming in N scale. Probably around February or March. Well, here is something cool. Stephanie, building my collapsible layout in the back of my semi. Now that's pretty cool. If you've got social media pictures of that, you might want to share that. That's really neat. Richie wants to know, will you be at the Spring Creek Model Train Show? I'm assuming you're talking about the big one this coming summer. If you don't know, Spring Creek does a biannual show every year, usually in July. And this year it'll be their 25th anniversary. So it'll be 25 years of Spring Creek, and they're going to have a show the same year their 25th anniversary. And yes, Athearn's going to be there. In fact, we'll be a major sponsor of the event. I will be there, and probably Mark will be there as well. And I'm hoping if I get enough time to work on the HO layout, maybe I'll have it with me. It's just a small switching layout, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. A lot can change between now and then. We all know that. Let's see. More requests. Sid actually contacted me the other day. He got his new SD60M Triclops. It sounds like he's really happy with them. If you remember, we announced those a little about 18, 20 months ago. These are the SD60M Triclops, the third run in the Genesis line. They have delivered. They started shipping the day after Christmas. And if you pre-ordered one of those, you've probably already got one like Sid. If not, you might want to call your dealer. A lot of those are going to go quick. For you guys that model BN 1990s, you're going to want to get on the phone now because we did 2 road numbers of BN whiteface triclops, and then we did 1 patched BNSF. So you're going to want to get on the phone and get those in. And by the way, if anybody wants to know, only the first run was affected by that truck problem. The truck problem has since been fixed from the factory onward, so you don't need to worry about that. That's all been fixed. Oh, let's see. Someone we haven't seen in a while. Late night. Model Railroad came in late. Good to see you doing these again. You're not really late. You're a little bit early, actually. We did 6 o'clock tonight versus 7 o'clock due to the holiday. Brian's got a good question. He's saying any plans to potentially tool up different 48 or 53-foot trailer types, specifically ones for UPS, FedEx use. I don't know of any plans on that. We know there's a need for it. We do currently have a UPS license. I believe we're working on a FedEx license. I don't have any resolution for you right now on the FedEx license, but those are all things that have hit our radar. So keep an eye on social media, and we'll try to keep you updated. Let's see. What other questions do we have? A lot of folks have been asking for FedEx, so that's why we've been looking at them from licensing aspect, and hopefully we can. I can't. It's looking good. I can't promise anything because licensing, it's a lot of legalese stuff. It looks like it's going well, but I can't. Again, we'll see what happens. Some other New Year's model railroads resolutions to finish the projects I started. Yeah, I know what that's like. Mr. Rhodes, cleaning service. Are you coming to Oregon in 2025? I don't think so. I don't think I am, but you never know. Things can change. Let's see. Railfan 1995, quick to correct me, saying no white face, just the straight face. Okay. Semantics a little bit, even though I was there railfanning them. Yes, from 1995 to 1999. You probably, Railfan 1995, probably will say no to the BNSF one. I'm just thinking, maybe. I could be guessing. Oh, let's see. Any other questions before I let you go and celebrate the oncoming new year? Thought I saw a question about motors. Who had that question? Here we are. JD wants to know, can you share what the difference is in the new Athearn locomotors like the MP15 compared to the Genesis motors? Genesis motors are typically sourced from a premium material. Sorry. One of the things, though, that we did do, and particularly with the SW1500s, if you had one that was from a release couple of years back, unfortunately, those were prone to burning out. So when we redesigned the SW1500 about a year or so ago, we also sourced new motors. Now those motors went through a strict QC process, both at the factory overseas as well as here. Our own product developers did a lot of the testing on these. They were tested for amperage, draw, things of that nature. And then we chose those motors to be built for the SW1500s. And so now, to date, that I know of anyways, we've had a really good track record with the new motors that are in the SW1500s. Likewise, the Genesis motors that were in the MP15s, even those years ago were burning out. We sourced new material, new manufacturer to update those motors, make those motors more reliable. And again, they went through a strict QC process. Pretty much with Genesis, think of it as our top tier model. It's going to have the best of the best. That's why it's going to have the better motor, the better. The drivetrain is very similar to our other brands, but the motors are going to be the top class motors, and of course the capabilities as well. Genesis locomotives will come with a Tsunami 2 option, and Athearn locomotives or the former Ready to Roll line are going to come with the Economy. And then Roundhouse, our economic brand, those are just DCC ready. They no longer include decoders. So hopefully that answers your question. Anthony wants to know, will there be any special announcement from Athearn at Springfield this year? If there is, the first place you're going to want to do is you're going to want to watch our social media. So again, Athearn's on Facebook, Instagram, X, former Twitter, YouTube, of course. And if you've not done so yet, your best resource for news is the Athearn newsletter. We call it the Dispatcher. It goes out every Friday. It's a weekly newsletter. We will hint at that. We did that with the SD60s. We hinted about it there. So be sure to sign up for any of those services. That'll be the first place you know if we do announce something at Springfield. You'll hear about it first there. All right. Well, with that, I'm going to let you guys get back to it, get some modeling done, and no party for me tonight. I'm just going to take it easy. You know, I'd much rather stay here and take the day off and work on my layout or my layouts, or work at the workbench with one of my many projects that I need to finish in 2025. So I hope you will do the same. With that, I want to thank everybody for joining me on this New Year's Eve. Happy 2025, and thank you all that are watching this both on the live as well as YouTube. I want to thank you, our customers, for making Athearn have a very successful and happy 2024, and we look forward as a company to helping you enjoy the hobby even more as we go into 2025. With that, I want to say Happy New Year, be safe, be healthy, do some good modeling, and above all, high greens. Good night. I'll see you next week.